Hello everybody, and welcome to another installment of I'm Grass and You're a Power Mower. You're grass and I'm a power mower, whichever it is. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the antepenultimate track of the Beach Boys' Today LP. It's called She Knows Me Too Well. And we're going to do it a little differently this time. Just starting here in track view without doing any sort of special intro or anything. It's a very simple track, and it's a very basic arrangement. So rather than talking too much about the arrangement, I'm going to talk a little more about what I do on my end to help replicate the sound, and hopefully you'll find that interesting. Feel free to let me know what you like to hear about and what you don't. Okay, so the overall production principle on this that is most interesting to me is that Brian and Chuck, between them, chose to drive things a little more. I think it's sort of a reference back to Little Honda, where things are just pushed a little bit. So here's Brian's piano, for instance. And you can hear how driven that is. Here's what it sounds like just straight. So what I'm doing is driving the UAD 610 input, and this is a replication, a simulation, an emulation of the input modules at all of the Bill Putnam studios in Hollywood. So United Western, anything recorded there went in through one of these in the mid-60s, and so certainly Brian's piano would have at the time, and I'm fortunate to be able to replicate that to some extent with the Universal Audio plugins. Now, another thing you'll notice is that it's heavily compressed, and the compression I used is very likely what they had available at Western 3 and 65. It's a Universal Audio 176 compressor, and in those days they didn't apply compression so specifically to different things. They used it more as sort of a finishing touch, used it a little more specifically on vocals, but in this case it's very likely that they had one of these compressors on each bus grouping. So left, center, and right each had one of these, and anything sent through those could go through it. But from what it sounds like, they didn't use it that often. Here they certainly did. And then I've used just a touch of reverb from Sunset Sound, IK Multimedia's Sunset Sound Chamber 2. So arrangement-wise, very typical Brian Wilson pounding away. He loved to do that, and why not? It's fun to pound at the piano. Drums. Again, I'm fairly limited by what I can do with my emulation programs. I really miss having my drums and recording real drums. It's very sad to not be able to do that. But I do my best. And here Dennis playing pretty simple pattern. Little reverb on there. I used reverb from Western as offered by East West plugins. I had that drive a UAD 610 input as well. Now, another cool thing about this particular drum sample set that I'm using is it was all sampled and recorded in Western 3. So what you're hearing are drums recorded in Western 3, however imperfect, sample drums may be. The ambiance should be correct there, then plus the reverb from Western Studios as well. Now Carl, again, very simple stuff, strumming. He went straight into the board, right into the UAD. Well, I went right into the UAD. Carl went into the Universal Audio Putnam 610. More Western reverb. I've been using the Western plates a lot, rather than the chambers. There's that. Okay, and then Al, his bass is very driven. you listen on the bootleg to the end of the take, the end of the master take, you can really hear it's really pushing the input hard, a lot harder than we're used to, I think, hearing bass. And I actually had to add a little more overdrive to it because I couldn't get the drive to sound quite right with just the input module. And then I EQ'd a little bit with this McDSP thing. And then the final touch in the arrangement is this this mic stand, which Russ Titelman says that Brian had him hit a mic stand with a screwdriver. I couldn't quite get the right sound on my own mic stand, so I used, I don't know if you can see it, I used a music stand for sheet music. It was a little more ringy. So nothing much to that, I just added a little reverb. So all together, sounds like that. And then to sort of tie everything together, I put some of this IK Multimedia tape emulation. It's the MCI tape simulation they do. Adds a little more of an analog sound to it. Now, speaking of analog sounds, I think this track in particular suffers very much from some bouncing down, and it's a really muddy mix. So what I've done for your benefit is separate things out a little bit in stereo so you can hear them. Well, there's really not that much to do since there's so few instruments, but let me just play a little bit in stereo and then mono, and you can kind of hear how we're in stereo now. Now I'm going to collapse it to mono. And you know, it probably sounds better in mono production-wise, but sort of hearing the individual instruments, it suffers. And of course, you weren't necessarily meant to hear the individual instruments, but now you can. I hope you enjoyed it. Next, we're going to be talking about in the back of my mind, which is going to be a much more involved discussion, a much more involved production. So please have patience as I compile that. Sometimes these things take a while. And then I am actually going to do a full session with Big Daddy. I have some things to say about that are actually, you know, fully earnest and not ironic. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this approach versus another approach. Tell me what you like to hear about these things. I'm sure I'll hear about not doing Carl's guitar solo, but it's not that interesting to talk about. It's a guitar playing a solo. Feel free to disagree with me if you like. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Be well, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.